Hello everyone, and glad to have you with us for the Smoky Hills Public Television Playoff Preview. I'm James Westlean, Operations Manager for Salina Radio and play-by-play announcer for the El Saline Cardinals and the Bethany College Swedes during the football season. And I'm joined by John Betts of Kansas Pregame. John, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, about Kansas Pregame, and about the radio show that you and I do on a weekly basis.
Well, I'm the publisher of Kansas Pregame Football Magazine. It's the state's only comprehensive preseason high school and college football magazine. And also I collaborate with kpreps.com, a high school football website that covers the state of Kansas from one end to the other. And James and I also collaborate on a radio show, the Kansas Pregame Show, powered by kpreps.com. And if you go to kpreps.com, you click on the radio banner, you'll be able to find out the stations that it runs on or listen to it on our player at the week after the show comes out.
Well, for tonight's show, we're going to take a look at the 6A, the 5A, and the 2A brackets, and we'll start in Class 6A. And each one of these classifications, John, has their clear-cut favorites. That's a given. But of the favorites in Class 6A, are there any teams that could be on upset alert round one?
Well, when we look at the west side of the bracket, I really don't think there are. It appears like the matchups, the favorites are clear favorites in those contests. On the eastern side of the bracket, which is mostly the Kansas City metro area, Topeka, Lawrence, a lot of those games are pretty balanced, from 1 to 8 in that side of the bracket.
Bracket looks like this. On the eastern half, Olathe East will take on Lawrence Free State. Shawnee Mission Northwest will play Shawnee Mission West. Shawnee Mission East will battle with Olathe South. Olathe North, they'll take on Shawnee Mission North. Wichita Heights and Garden City will play on the western half of the 6A bracket. Wichita Northwest and Junction City. Manhattan will battle with Derby, and Dodge City will play Hayesville Campus. On that western half, let's talk about some of these teams. Wichita Heights, Manhattan, Dodge City, all undefeated. Of those three teams, is there a clear-cut favorite? Is it Wichita Heights?
Well, I think Wichita Heights is the clear-cut favorite in Class 6A. Rick Wheeler, been there for several years, done great things with that organization as a whole. Steve Martin, defensive coordinator, formerly the head coach at Troy High School. He's playing great defense. And not with a huge defense either. Got a couple of defensive ends that are about 185, 190 pounds. One of them named Zarence Brickhouse, one of the best names in all of Kansas high school football. But also on the offensive side of the ball, Dreamius Smith, a KU commit at tailback, Daniel DeShazer, going to go wrestle at Oklahoma, a diminutive slot back, very much like Colt Rogers from Smith Center last year. And then also another big name for Wichita Heights in the defensive backfield, the safety Evan Wessel, going to go play basketball at Wichita State.
On the eastern half, Olathe North is out to defend their 6A title, their 6A crown. But remember, they seed them in these 6A and 5A brackets, and Olathe East got the 1 seed. We don't necessarily think that's too important, but for Olathe North, they've got a pretty tough road to the championship if they want to get back.
And I actually think that in looking at the bracket, Olathe East being the 1 seed, getting Lawrence Free State may be a tougher matchup than Olathe North getting Shawnee Mission North. Olathe North lost a lot off of a very good team last year. James Franklin, the standout running back, but they also have Victor Simmons back at quarterback, Joshua Finley, linebacker, and Adonis Saunders, a big-name running back. They may be the favorite to repeat, but Olathe East is right in the mix as well.
Cutting the Class 6A bracket in half, eastern half, western half. Which side looks more competitive to you and probably the strongest?
Well, I think that the eastern half is more competitive from 1 through 8, but the western half probably has the best teams in 6A.
Let's take a look at the Class 5A state playoff bracket. He's John Betts. I'm James Westlean. Most intriguing first-round matchup, and there are plenty of intriguing first-round matchups. Gardner-Edgerton will play Bonner Springs. Shawnee Heights will battle with Mill Valley. Bishop Miege, the Stags will take on Blue Valley Stillwell in a great first-round game. Lansing and Topeka Seaman. On the western half, you've got McPherson and Andover Central. Great Bend, they host Bishop Carroll. Cape and Mount Carmel and Emporia. And then Hutch and Salina Central. Salina Central having their 17-year playoff streak snapped last year. They're right back in there. Of those first-round matchups, which of those really catches your eye?
I think the most intriguing is Great Bend and Bishop Carroll. Great Bend, a team that lost to several very good large class opponents early in the season, has been playing much better football towards the end of the year, and every week they seem to have gotten better. Handing Salina South a tough defeat in the last round of district play. And I think that while Bishop Carroll looks outstanding after they play close with Hutch, I think that Great Bend has an opportunity to give Bishop Carroll a good game in that first round matchup.
That game's in Great Bend. Does home field advantage in the playoffs? I think once you get to this point, we kind of know who the real big dogs are, but Great Bend with their 5-4 record sneaking in, getting a home game, will the home field advantage help them out quite a bit?
I think that home field advantage is very beneficial on Tuesday night, but not so much on Friday and Saturday night. Really, coaching, preparation, game plan, those are the keys when you get to 5A, 6A playoff football.
Well, I think when everybody took a look at the 5A bracket, you saw Gardner Edgerton up top, and you see Hutchinson there on the bottom. Are those two teams on a collision course for the championship, or is there potential for somebody along the way to knock one of the big boys off?
I think that McPherson certainly has an opportunity to challenge Hutchinson if it gets to that point. Everybody, I think, has been claiming Gardner Edgerton as the champion all year. Since the beginning of the year, a lot of major polls have had Hutchinson unseated by Gardner Edgerton already. And then with last week's close win over Bishop Carroll, everybody is thinking that Hutchinson has taken a step backwards this year. Well, Hutchinson had 7 turnovers in that game against Bishop Carroll. And I don't care how good of a team you are, it's hard to overcome 7 turnovers. And so I think that game's a little bit of an aberration, and I still really think that Hutchinson is the clear favorite in this classification. But don't discount Bubba Starling and Marvin Diener at Gardner Edgerton. Bubba Starling, one of the greatest high school football players that I have ever seen in the state of Kansas. We can talk about him potentially being the best athlete that's ever played high school athletics in the state of Kansas. And his speed certainly has the opportunity to keep Gardner Edgerton in it if they get to that point where they face off with Hutch.
Well, speaking of Gardner Edgerton, Marvin Diener, the head coach, Bubba Starling, the outstanding quarterback who is committed to Nebraska. Their really only one real competitive game on the 2010 season was against McPherson. McPherson, a team. Could they give Hutch some problems?
I think they can. They've got a great quarterback in Tyler Matthews, 6'3", 200-pounder, great wide receiver in Christian Alsaker. And Tom Young, can be talked about as one of the greatest coaches in Kansas high school history. Not just because he's won more than 300 games, but because he's won at several different schools. And not just big schools, but also small schools. Started out his career at Hanover, won a state championship there, had a great career at Derby, and then came to McPherson and took a school that was honestly mediocre at football, a basketball school, and immediately turned them into a contender in high school football. They certainly could be a contender in this classification.
You spoke earlier about the Bishop Carroll and the Hutch game. Bishop Carroll has Great Bend. That's kind of your first round matchup that you really want to keep an eye on, that people should take note of. Bishop Carroll, if they get by Great Bend, how good of a football team is that moving forward? They would get McPherson most likely in the next round.
Well, they've been playing great defense, and it's cliche, obviously, but defense does win championships. Being able to shut down opposing offenses always gives your team a chance to win, because if you can't get things going on offense, your defense gives you an opportunity to edge out a close game. So I think their defense could give them a chance, but it would be awfully difficult to slow down the likes of McPherson, Hutch, or Gardner Edgerton.
Glad to have you with us. It's the Smoky Hills Public Television Playoff Preview. We've taken a look at Class 6A, and just one final thought on Class 5A. Bishop Miege, the Class 4A state champion last year, just adds a little more power to this Class 5A bracket. In 2A, this is the first year without the Tuesday game and a smaller bracket. Was this a good decision by the Kansas State High School Activities Association to cut down the number of teams that make the postseason in Class 2A?
Well, I think it was, because the situation with small classes, some schools dropping to 8-man, losing those numbers. We've lost numbers in the small class, and with not so many schools, it seems it's probably wrong to be sending 2 teams out of 4-team districts. And this situation allows us to have higher quality opponents in first-round matchups, which I think is good. I'm not sure whether there still should be a Tuesday game. As a coach, as a past coach, I know I hated preparing for a Tuesday playoff game.
Right.
It's really difficult to win a district, do whatever, and then turn right around and have to get kids ready to go on Tuesday night. So I think from a coaching standpoint, they probably really like that, but I'm also sure that there's a lot of parents out there that don't like having to travel to a game after Thanksgiving if they go that far.
And that's a great point. The Class 2A bracket looks like this. Up top, St. Mary's Colgan will take on Oskaloosa. You've got St. Mary's. They'll play Washington County in round 1. Opie and Valley Falls will play. Onega and Centralia, the defending Class 2A state champion in Centralia. Remember, they knocked off Smith Center last year. I think a lot of people have kind of written them off already. Sacred Heart and El Saline will battle. That'll be a great game in Salina. Ellis and Stanton County will butt heads in the opening round. Moundridge will play at La Crosse, and Atwood-Rawlins County will take on Meade. Meade, a team, their only loss on the season, week 1, to a powerhouse out of the state of Texas. Some potential second-round matchups, and the one I look at, John, is on the bottom half of the bracket. You've got Moundridge and La Crosse. We assume La Crosse will beat Moundridge. They're undefeated. And Meade, if they were to get by Atwoods-Rawlins County. That could be a great game between La Crosse and Meade.
It has the potential to be a great game. The key is the health of La Crosse's 2 best players, Marcus Mader, who suffered a foot injury mid-season that kept him out of several games, and then also Taylor Stahl, a great junior quarterback who I was very impressed with when I had an opportunity to watch him play El Saline. He had a shoulder injury earlier in the year too. They need to be 100% for them to be competitive with a Meade team that has developed a program. I mean, they expect to perform at a certain level year in, year out, and that results in deep playoff runs for them. They have a number of talented players, including Kellen Hernandez and Jaden Friesen, but their coach, Scott Mosier, has really put together an outstanding program there at Meade.
You know, it's interesting, and you and I have spoken throughout the course of the season about Meade and the fact that, keep in mind, their only loss is to a team from the state of Texas, and it was week 1. I've seen them as high as number 2 in some polls. KPreps.com is 1, and I've seen them as low as number 4 and number 5 in Class 2A. They're a good football team.
Well, and I think that early season loss to a very good Canadian-Texas team probably helps them learn quite a bit about themselves. Quite frankly, Texas high school football is high school football. It is the most elite high school football setup in the entire country, not just because of the number of schools, the number of athletes, but also because of their spring and summer practice rules that basically let them do whatever they want to with their coaches during that time frame. And that's what makes them so competitive. So you learn a lot about yourself when you lose to a team from Texas.
Now, a first-round matchup that has the makings to be a barn burner. Not necessarily record-wise, with El Saline being 4-5 and Sacred Heart being 5-4, but these are rivalries, if you will, but they haven't played these rivals since 2004, Coach King told me this week. This could be a good game now that Tate Omley's healthy and Sacred Heart, they can run the ball.
Well, I think this is going to be an exceptional game, and it is a heated rivalry regardless of how long it's been since they've played. And 2 contrasting styles, really. You know, I know that Terry King would like to run the ball, and he would like to run the ball with Zach Willis, but he really, now that he has Tate Omley back, they're truly a throwing team. That's their bread and butter. They've got great wideout, Caleb Whitehair, an outstanding player. And Sacred Heart, under Bruce Graver, they prefer to run the ball, and they're going to do it with Brandon Rapp, a kid that's had more than one 200-yard rushing game so far this season.
We've got just a little bit of time left, John, but 2 teams I want you to make mention of. Pitt Colgan, are they beatable? And Centralia, as I mentioned, the defending state champ that a lot of people have seemed to have forgotten. They beat Smith Center last year.
Well, thanks to a rain out, I only got to see Pitt Colgan warm up this year, but their athletes looked very impressive. Now, I'm told that they have a number of starters who may not be able to play for the rest of the season, and that could be a huge factor for them. Centralia, yes, people have written them off. They've played some great competition early in the season, and they return a lot of talent.
That's all for the Smoky Hills Public Television Playoff Preview. We appreciate your time. Be sure to catch the Smoky Hills Public Television Scoreboard Show Friday nights at 10:30. Also, kpreps.com for live in-game scoring throughout the playoffs. For John Betts, I'm James Westling. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.